everybody, and welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. I have stolen the mic from Jeff Moore for Leadership Thursday. My name is Christina Previtt. I am lead faculty for Modern Management of the Older Adult, Essential Foundations and Advanced Concepts. As well, I am the lead faculty for Clinical Management of the Fitness, Athlete, Pregnancy, and Postpartum. But probably one of the most important things about this talk today is that I'm also a business owner and I'm a practicing physical therapist who has been navigating some of the stresses and struggles related to COVID-19 in my city. So I thought today, I always get a little nervous when I take the mic from Jeff Moore because he's like the leader and I have to make sure that I follow in his footsteps gracefully. So I have a little bit of butterflies in my stomach taking this segment, but it's a little silly, I know. But I thought today that I would talk a little bit about our mental health in light of a very stressful situation, one that is changing, seems like it's by the hour, and in a time of social distancing. So if you are like me, I am a hyper extrovert. I did a personality test and I was on like the 95% of the extroverted side of the scale. And so human interaction is something that is really, really important to me and something that makes me love my job. And so it's been a really interesting switch. So I thought that we would go through a couple of different things that we can do as a collective and as an individual to try and protect our mental health. Because if we look at the literature in older adults, social isolation is one of the leading factors for depression, as well as loss of physical independence, malnutrition, all these things that are really, really important for us to live healthy lives. And so I thought we would go through a couple things. So the first thing is that we have had a lot of PTs reach out talking about their clinics and if they should be open during COVID-19 and is PT essential. I think Jeff did an amazing job on Monday of targeting that question. And I'm just going to mirror what he says, that if you ever need to talk to somebody, I'm a business owner, Jeff's in business. A lot of our faculty have different business endeavors and have had to make those difficult decisions. Reach out to us. We had an amazing conversation. We ended up going about half an hour late on advanced concepts last night, just so that clinicians could connect with other clinicians to compare what is happening across the state, across the different states, across the different countries, and trying to go from there. So if you need to talk, the first thing that I would say that is going to help your mental health is to speak to someone who has gone through either the act of closing or who has had some of those difficult conversations with employers. If you feel like you don't want to be working and they're kind of forcing you to go business as usual, all these different ethical dilemmas are starting to come up. What I will say is that we made the decision to close Stave Off last Monday. So we've been closed for about 10 days now, a week and a half, and it doesn't look like there is any end in sight. So I understand the financial stress and anxiety and weight of essentially not knowing if my gym is going to make it through this. But what I will say is that when we were in this transition period where we were trying to ramp up our PPE measures but still remain open, I was waking up every morning with these massive headaches. Obviously, I was ruminating about it at night, and it obviously was that things weren't sitting well with me. And though the financial stress didn't go away, as soon as I decided that we were going to close, my headaches went away. And so I think that there's a lot of PTs right now whose mental health is being negatively affected because there's this sense of cognitive dissonance or this weight that is being held on them in the waiting for or the transition to whatever decision is going to be happening with them, especially for some of my outpatient private practice clinicians. And I know that in the Jaros group, we have had a lot of conversations about when it is appropriate and when it isn't, and should we be triaging, and what would it mean if we as the clinician became the positive vector and saw a caseload of 60 people over 3 days, and then all of a sudden we found out that we could have potentially been transmitting this disease to multiple people, or to tens and 20s and 30s of people that could potentially be vulnerable, and it could have really negative consequences. Okay, so there is that. So if you guys ever want to reach out, I'm pretty sure I can speak for the entire faculty that we are here for you, and we can definitely jump on a call, message back and forth. I've had a couple people ask me for the release that I sent as a business to my members. Absolutely. All hands on deck. We can absolutely help you with that. Okay, so what are some of the other things if you are now not working and social distancing? What are some of the things that we can do to make sure that we kind of protect our mental health? And so the first thing that I'm going to say is that it is okay to not be okay. And a lot of times on social media, there can be a ton of positivity, and I'm a pretty positive person, and I'm trying to, be positive online. But I also acknowledge that last week when we were closing the business and we didn't know what was going to happen from a financial perspective, I was not okay. I was having extra time on my hands where I felt like I needed to be productive, but I just couldn't be productive. I had to let myself process the emotions of what is happening, and that is okay. So if you feel like everybody is telling you, well, we have all this time on our hands, we should do all these projects, and you feel like you are failing because that is not what you are doing right now, the first thing I want to tell you is that it is okay to feel like you need to take a couple of days to feel better and be okay. So the first thing I'm going to say is it's okay to not be okay, because this is a big situation. It is impacting a lot of people economically and financially, and not to mention that you could have family, friends, loved ones who are ill with this condition, or you're worried about infecting other people. And so it is okay to not be okay. If you are not okay, I encourage you to reach out. So I talked about how I can mirror the sentiments of Jeff, and I'm pretty sure I could speak for a lot of the faculty that if you do need to talk to someone from the professional community, we are here for you. We can definitely have a chat, but also reach out to your family networks. Whoever it is that can be your sounding board, let yourself talk through your emotions so that you kind of know where you stand. I didn't realize that for me, as much as the financial stress was coming with Stave Off, the gym, and our physio clinic being closed, it was my fear that I was going to be a positive asymptomatic vector that was more stressful to me than the financial aspect of the business. And it wasn't until I talked through some of that with my colleagues and friends that I was able to kind of work through those emotions. So that's number one. So now let's talk about some tangible strategies that you can use. Okay, tangible strategy number one, keep moving. We are a fitness forward organization. We try and lead from the front in regards to being physically active individuals. It is hard when a lot of people do no longer have their do no longer have their gym available. I know that a lot of people have been struggling with barbell withdrawal and have been jealous of anybody who has a garage gym. However, there are so many home programs. I think it's wonderful if you can try and, at least at the very beginning of your day, try and get a little bit of movement in. It's really crazy to think how lethargic you can feel once you get out of that routine of not moving consistently. And social distancing is a really easy way for your activity level to really drop. If you are involved in any of the CrossFit boxes in your area, I hope that they're doing online classes. Stave Off is running classes multiple times per day through Zoom, and we're doing other community events like a sip and stretch. So everyone grabbed a drink and we just stretched for 30 minutes and connected. And it was a way for us to try and encourage physical activity in our community, as well as continuing being physically active with our friends and ourselves. The second thing is, let's try and reach out to your friends virtually. the nice thing about all of these changes in technology is that things like Zoom have like virtual games nights where they have different games that you can sign into through their platform, and you can still connect with friends even if you aren't seeing them face to face. And I think that can be so helpful, because if you're not having that human interaction, especially as physical therapists who are used to seeing people all the time, then it'll definitely be something that you'll probably notice will have a negative impact on your mood. The next thing that I would say is try to figure out a new at-home routine. I don't know about your personality, but with mine, if I feel like I have endless amounts of time, I end up becoming the worst procrastinator in the world. And so sometimes for me, being more busy is better, because then I'm like, okay, I have this 2 hours to start working on this lecture. I need to get it done. I'm going to get to work. But what's happening sometimes with social distancing or with your caseloads going significantly lower because of fear of COVID, et cetera, you have all this time on your hands. And so once you've kind of processed your emotions around what is happening with COVID-19 and you feel a little bit more ready to tackle your day, is try and chunk out your day. And so put time for leisure, put time for potentially working on a new project, put time for taking online continuing education courses, take time for all those things and kind of chunk them out. And it can be really, really helpful. As an auxiliary, or as a kind of accessory to that, try and separate your spaces. Sometimes that can be really hard if you're in a really small apartment, but it sometimes is really hard to mentally switch tasks if you are relaxing in the same spot that you were working. So what that can mean is that your brain is always either going to work mode, or an email will pop up and you'll answer it really quickly, or your brain will never just go into relaxation mode, or it'll never go into work mode. So what I tend to do is, we have a little loft above the garage in our house, and that is where I work. So I hang out with my family in the kitchen and living room, dining room area. And then if I'm working, I'm going up to the loft, and that is where our workspace is. And it helps me compartmentalize and prioritize what my main task or goal is for that time, to make sure that I'm feeling a little bit better. The other thing, so going around some of the health promotion things, is try and get outside each day. It depends on the state and the province or the country that you are in right now, what that might look like. In Canada, because so many people are home with kids with the schools being closed, a lot of people were starting to go out to different trails in our provincial parks or our state parks, and they ended up having too many people and having to shut them down. I know that there are other states that are on complete lockdown, which means that you have to stay on your property. Even if that is just standing outside in your backyard or sitting outside in your backyard, there is something very therapeutic about being outside and not being stuck in the same four walls for the entire day. So if you can, try and get outside each day, sun, rain, whatever, dress appropriately and try and get outside. One of the great things, I have two dogs, two very, very active dogs, that if I was sitting around all day, they would just be barking at me to like get outside, which is great, because if I don't feel like I want to be getting outside, then they are going to force me out there. So try and get outside every day. Another thing is try to continue to eat healthy. This is extremely challenging, but it is so important. When you start eating more processed foods than your body is used to, more excessive sugars than your body is used to, you start feeling lethargic, and there tends to be this big roller coaster of our energy, which can sometimes make us feel kind of blah. And so what my husband and I have done is we've continued to meal prep on Sundays, even though we are home. I know a lot of people could potentially be thinking, oh, well, I can just cook dinner every night now. I don't need to meal prep. But having meals available that are healthy and nutritious and are going to support you from a mental and physical health perspective make it a lot easier for you to stay on track. For our area in Kingston, we are on essential businesses only, and they have asked that we only go to grocery stores and pharmacies when absolutely necessary. So I just haven't been buying any processed sugars. I just haven't been buying any processed foods. And because we can't go to the grocery store whenever we want to, or to pick up anything that we are like craving, then that means that I just haven't been eating it as much, and I've been sticking to the meals that we've already had planned out. And I notice a difference between the days that I tend to eat more poorly and the days that I eat better, that my mental health, my clarity, my energy is a lot better on those days that I'm eating healthy. All right, the next thing from a health promotion perspective is to try and limit your alcohol consumption. I know that when stress is high, we can talk about if this is a good coping strategy or not, but people tend to say, oh my goodness, I need a drink. The thing about alcohol, though, is that it is a depressant. So it is actually not a stimulant. It is a depressant on our nervous system, which means that especially after we finish drinking alcohol, so either later on that day or the next day, there is a rebound low that can really impact a person's mental health negatively. And so I think it's really important to try and limit our alcohol consumption. So my husband and I have put in like the 1 a day max, which we haven't even been doing. Well, last week I probably did do 1 a day, but this week I'm not even doing that. And I've noticed that it's made a huge, huge difference. And then the last thing is for people who are still working on the front line, try and see if there's any supports and keep talking with your administration, because I know that things are changing every single day and that can be extremely stressful. I know that some hospital systems have started to ask allied health professionals to be volunteer COVID workers. So right now it isn't a requirement as an allied health professional in all settings. And again, this is hugely different depending on the area of practice you're in and the state, that you could potentially go into frontline working with individuals with COVID, or you could decide not to and really start reflecting on what you think about that and try and, make that decision for yourself and for your family. So, summary, things to work on to help protect your mental health, especially if you are social distancing or are in isolation right now. 1, keep moving. 2, reach out to your friends virtually. There's online game nights. There's a whole bunch of things that we can do now. People have been really creative. I've been loving seeing some of these things online. Try and chunk your day. So try and figure out basically your own new home routine. Try and figure out what you can do to keep some of those aspects of your life separate. If you want to start learning something new, that's great. Doing things like puzzles, keeping your mind occupied, all of those different things I think are really, really great. Different avenues that potentially you didn't have the time to do before that you're having some time to do now. Try and separate your spaces if possible. Sometimes you're going to have some separate space from other people in your house. Like for some people, they're in their significant other's space 24/7 now, where before they only saw each other for an hour at night. And that could be a huge switch. We see that with people who retire and all of a sudden they're in their spouse's space and they have to figure out a new routine. Sometimes having a separate area of the house for individuals or for work versus pleasure can definitely help to make sure that our minds are spacing in different ways. Try and get outside each day. Eat healthy. Limit alcohol consumption. Realize that it's okay to not be okay. And if you're not okay, reach out to your network, because we are all impacted, big or small, by COVID-19. And so we are definitely going to need to talk through some of our emotions and reflect and meditate on how we are feeling with a lot of things. The last thing I'm going to say is one of the things that's really helped me is I've also limited my amount of social media consumption, especially my news consumptions around COVID-19. When we were first in the decision or having the decision to close Stave Off, then I felt like I was constantly just watching the news around what was happening, and it was starting to drive me crazy. And so now I take chunks of time where I watch the news and then I just have to turn it off. And I've noticed that I've become a much more productive human as a result. All right, that is it for today. I definitely went a little bit longer, but I have some time on my hands. I'm actually in the front area of Stave Off, which I usually can't because there's usually people here. So we are kind of coming into the business every day to make sure everything's okay and uphold some of our insurance requirements. But if you guys have any other things that you have found have really helped with your mental health, I would love for you to post them in the comments. If you want to reach out to myself or any other of the faculty, again, you can put a comment below, or you can reach out to us directly through Instagram, Facebook, or email. My email is Christina@staveoff, STAVEOFF.ca. We are all here for each other, and we will be stronger on the other side as a community and as individuals. And this is going to be one for the record books. All right, I'm going to be back with my Jerry PT hat on next week. But until then, stay safe, everyone, and we're thinking of you all. Bye.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.